Diaries of a Madman. Written by What Must I Do? Chapter 1. And so it begins. Part 3. The next day brought me sleeping in quite a bit less. Thankfully, the effects of sleep deprivation don't hit the young as bad as they do the old. I was mostly over it by that point. My senses were working better than they had in a long, long time. That enabled me to start noticing more and more about my new world. The first thing I had a chance to notice when I woke up was a very large and very blue set of eyes right in my face. I won't lie, I jumped and yelled in obscenity. Pinkie Pie's reaction was funnier, admittedly. She started hiccuping when I yelled. Have you ever seen a horse hiccup? Funniest thing I've ever saw. We both started giggling. So, aside from being creepy, why were you staring at me while I slept? I asked her while the little episode was over.
Well, I was going to apologize for shocking you, but then I saw you sleeping, and then I realized I'd never seen a human sleeping before, and I wanted to see how different it was from a pony sleeping, so I was watching you while you slept.
All of that came out rather quick tirade that was a bit disquieting. Well, what did you discover? Am I different from a pony?
Uh-huh. Your face is all squished and flat. Also, your eyes are super small and a very dark green instead of a bright color most ponies have. I didn't notice that while you were sleeping, though.
Pinky, you're a little random, aren't you? Also, apology accepted. Accidents happen, I suppose. Hell, I'm here because of one. In more ways than one. So, does Twilight know you're up here? Or did you manage to sneak past her oppressive guard?
Silly Nav. Twilight's not oppressive, but she does know I'm up here.
Not oppressive to you, maybe, but I've been cramped in this library since I got here. Does she actually live here, or is she just staying here? When she started to answer, I noticed her tail started to spaz out. I thought I was having a seizure or something, and asked her about it. As soon as I mentioned it, she squawked and looked around for something to duck under. Just as she jumped under a table, and I took a hint and fell off the bed, the window exploded and a blue mass went crashing into the far wall. Jesus! I yelled. What the hell was that? Seeing Rainbow Dash twitching against the wall, I rushed over to check her for injuries. Surprisingly, despite crashing through several branches, a glass window, and then into a wall, at a speed so fast that I couldn't even register what she was, the pony was somehow completely undamaged, not a feather out of place. How the hell are you not broken? I asked her. What you just did should have had you scratched the hell and probably smeared across the wall.
I'm used to it,
She said.
They used to call me Rainbow Crash back in school.
Note to self, never accept a ride from these ponies. Jesus. Pinkie Pie was digging her way out of the wreckage around the table as Twilight started running up the stairs to see what was amiss. She sighed when she saw her window.
Another window. Thanks, Rainbow Dash. Sorry, Twilight,
She muttered.
You know how it is.
So, is this a normal occurrence in Ponyland? I asked. I'm not certain I want to sleep in a room with a window if it is. Christ, I don't even know how she isn't a broken mess. You ponies must be more resilient than Jets. They were confused by Jets. I just waved it off, telling them to forget it. I used explaining tech they wouldn't understand.
Hey, I don't crash that often,
Protested Rainbow Dash.
Besides, I totally planned that anyway.
Yeah, sure you did, I said, somewhat resigned and rubbing my temples slightly. Sorry if I seem a bit testy. I've been trapped inside for the past few days, completely separated from any chance of ever seeing my home or family again. Trapped here in a world where things thought impossible are apparently commonplace, with a load of personalities that are different from mine. It'll take some adjustment, I suppose. Though, thinking about it, you likely wouldn't know the difference from a testing me and a normal me,
We understand, Navarone.
Twilight said.
I've been looking for a spell to send you back, but there's nothing about it in any of my books. I even asked Princess Celestia to look into it. She has reported no luck. As far as I can tell, you're stuck here.
God fucking damn it. So, what's on today's agenda? I sighed, slowly growing resigned to my fate. Thank God for shock, I suppose. And hell, maybe I'll get lucky and wake up to find this was all a dream. The two other options, that I either finally went truly insane, or this was actually real, were both more terrifying than I could handle at the moment. Anyway, the clothes were done, and apparently, a certain white pony seems to have a hard time taking instructions. Rarity, you seem too smart to be unable to take simple instructions. Why, I wonder, did you make me clothes that go completely against what I asked you to make? I understand we didn't quite get off on the most understandable start, but that's no reason to torture me with your vibrant monstrosities. I told her. She was not pleased at all with my choice of words, but took great pains to hide her anger.
Because, darling, fashion cannot be dictated by one pony, or human, I suppose. I simply couldn't let you go wear more than what you are now. It would be a disgrace to my profession.
You are a very dramatic pony. I suppose you never thought that perhaps I wanted to go against your pony fashions? That perhaps, in doing so, I could create a counter fashion that all the ponies in the know would rush to copy? In my world, if a guest from another world came by, the cattle in charge of fashion would rush to copy his every stitch. I figured your fashion industry, if you ponies even have one for whatever stupid reason, is run by the same way. What better chance would I have to accept that I was here, seemingly accidentally, start an entire fashion trend based off human designs? I didn't exactly feel right lying like that, but I was starting to just not care at all.
Your fashion industry is run by cows?
Pinkie Pie asked.
I thought only humans could talk in your world.
I jumped when she spoke up. Honestly, I thought she had left. She was being uncharacteristically quiet, looking over the books on the shelves. Figure of speech, Pinkie, figure of speech, I said. God, these ponies are going to drive me to drink. Now they even have booze here. During that small exchange, Rarity was mulling over what I said, her mouth open and closed a few times, quite like a fish. It was satisfying. Finally, she said,
I think I see your point, though wearing our fashion might have the same effect of helping you fit in.
Is it truly too much to ask for a few comforts from home? I asked, running one of my hands over the fabric of my shirt. Not that I really mind pony fashion, now that I see somewhat of you made, but I would rather stick to what I know than completely submerge myself entirely. There's no reason to waste the cloth. If it can't be recycled, I'll at least hold on to these and wear them on special occasions or something. I told her. The beaming smile I got back almost made me regret lying earlier. I stopped almost regretting it with what came next, of course.
You must simply try them all on, darling,
She exhorted. Give a mouse a cookie. I would, but I'm sure Twilight has something else planned for this day. Something long and dreadful that you wouldn't want to be around for.
Well,
Twilight started. I flashed her a look and she took the hint.
Yes, actually. Run along. Rarity, I'm sure your work will fit him just fine. But Twilight...
Rarity whined before being unceremoniously bundled out the door. I sighed in relief but jumped as Pinkie Pie spoke up again.
Now we can talk about your welcome to Ponyville party.
What? I gave Twilight a look, and she answered me with a shake of her head. I turned to Pinkie and said, I'm allergic to parties. Every bone in her body jerked as she shot her entire body towards me. Her eyes went so wide that by all rights they should have popped out. It scared the shit out of me.
What did you say?
She uttered in a voice that should have had me quivering in fear. But I am a man, the greatest species out there, and we do not shake before prey animals. I pulled some hidden source of willpower and said, Parties. I'm allergic to them. Deathly so, I'm afraid. Having a party for me would be slightly impossible. Needless to say, this was all a lie. She seemed to withdraw on herself as she was muttered something, looking as though she was in deep thought. Twilight was giving me an intrigued look.
Humans can be allergic to parties?
She asked.
What else can you be allergic to?
We'll talk about it later, Twilight. I think Pinkie has something else she needs to say. She did apparently.
I know I can't throw you a party, but will cupcakes make up for it?
How about muffins instead? I asked. I prefer them, and I don't really like icing. Her mouth dropped. I thought for a second that I broke her. As her eyes seemed to glaze over, Twilight was looking at me with fear in her eyes. I almost said something when Pinkie jerked again.
We'll see about that,
She finally announced. I had a feeling that I had made a very big mistake. She pulled something from somewhere, I don't know where, I guess her poofy hair, and threw it on the ground, making a cloud of pink smoke. When it dissipated, she was gone. I seem to be getting a lot of practice with long-suffering sighs lately. Something told me that this was only the beginning. You sure this was a good idea? I whispered. It's not too late to kill me and sweep my corpse under the rug, you know.
Killing you would make too much of a mess and would ruin all the effort you put back into cleaning the place.
Twilight whispered back. She was getting used to my kind of humor. I didn't know if that was good or bad.
Besides, it's not like we're going to be giving you a grand entrance. You're just outside and anybody that wants to ask will. Then I'll have to explain that you're an interdimensional being that accidentally summoned and that you are part of the most dangerous species anywhere.
Gee, when you put it that way, I'm sure everything will go just fine, I said. Tell me again about what happened with that zebra and how well you took it. At least a zebra is pony-shaped.
Well, I didn't know any better. I would say you were nervous. I thought you were too calm and collected for that. Just remember the plan,
She said.
Now, are you ready?
No, I replied, pushing open the door to the bright world beyond.
It is in my opinion, as the ambassador to the human race,
Twilight said a few hours later.
that it could have been worse.
You need to learn to lie better. We'll have to work on that. I told her. Admittedly, she wasn't wrong. I could be dead right now, or completely ostracized. I can't really say it was that bad, really. Some people, ponies, whatever, just don't know how to stick to a plan. The plan was simple. Twilight and I decided that it would be best if the residents of Ponyville saw me together with respected ponies, talking and laughing and whatnot. We were going to make a circuit out of town, meeting with each of Twilight's friends and moving on after a short while, answering questions they were asked. Simple enough, right? Well, no plan ever survives first contact with the enemy, I've always heard. I was hoping to be an exception, and that goes it for hoping. It started innocently enough. Rainbow Dash was supposedly to do some manner of show or something, silly like in the park. Twilight and I showed up for it, trailed by a large group of ponies that were staring at me and wondering, often aloud, just what the fuck I was. I couldn't tell you how many times we answered that damn question. It was in the first outing that I learned how truly skittish those damn ponies were. Either way, Dash's show went reasonably well, until she came back down to talk to us to ask for suggestions. I didn't really know shit about flying, so I just told her to do a barrel roll. You know, what anyone would tell her to do. It ended poorly with a freak accident involving clouds, feathers, and crashing into a fucking mountain that appeared out of nowhere. Twilight rushed me off before too many of the ponies could accuse me of being evil and causing the accident. I later learned that Dash was perfectly alright, somehow. Our next stop was Rarity's Villa. On the way there, I tried to explain to Twilight that some of the physics behind what Dash was doing, truth be told, I was still relative layman to hefty subjects like that, but I knew more than the average person. I was honestly quite surprised at how easily Twilight understood what I was telling her. Sure, she was smart and all, but understanding physics without seeing it worked out is something else. But I digress. Rarity's fashion shop, the Carousel Boutique, I'll admit, I grimaced when I saw it. The place was so garish, actually being decked out like a carousel. Some of the witnesses saw my expression and teeth that came with it and visibly shuddered. That stop went a little better. Rarity was asked to have her store closed for the day to facilitate the meeting.
Hello, Twilight, Navarone.
The white unicorn said at the opening of the door.
Hello, Rarity.
Twilight answered. I just said, howdy.
Please come inside,
Rarity said, holding the door open for us. Into the belly of the beast, the two of us went, the door to the comparative safety of the town closing behind us.
I apologize for the mess.
There wasn't one. The entire place was clean.
I've just been so busy lately that I haven't had time to keep it up. That's no problem,
Twilight said with an easy smile.
So, what did you have planned? Why, a tea party.
Oh my god, why?
What's better the way to demonstrate Mr. Navarone's manners?
Oh boy. I sighed, not even trying to sound enthusiastic. Why did tea parties have to be a thing here? Can they even hold the cups? And are you sure your manners we humans have here are the same as you ponies have?
Well, that's what we're here to find out, isn't it?
Rarity asked with a very assured smile. Alright, I guess. But I wasn't part of any kind of fancy society, so don't expect much from me.
Oh, don't worry, dear. Every pony has some manners. You just have to do your best, and I'm sure that'll be fine.
Did I just get insulted? Anyway, so began Rarity's little tea party between me, her, and Twilight Sparkle. It was going fairly well until the front door slammed open. Thankfully, we were in the kitchen, so we didn't really see what was happening in the main room. "It is I, Photo Finish," some female voice said with an Eastern European accent. Gertie's eyes slammed open and her head jerked towards the door, and if it wasn't already completely white, I'd say she paled. After a few seconds of silence, she quickly turned back to Twilight and quietly hissed, "Out!"
But
Rarity's horn lit up and the back door in the kitchen slammed open. "Now!" she whispered, even more hectically. From the frantic look in her eyes, I don't think we've had it long before she'd get violent. Needless to say, I stood and quickly let myself out, trusting that Twilight would follow. As I'm sure you can imagine, having to sneak out the back door did wonders for what the town's ponies thought of me. Pinkie Pie was next. Pinkie Pie, I didn't much care for her at the time. Sure, she was incredibly nice and kind and all that stuff, but she was just too much. Too chipper, too happy, too much into love with icing. When Twilight and I got to the bakery, at which she works, the lights immediately shut off. A single spotlight showed us a table with 3 chairs. If it had been night, I would have called this creepy. But since it was the day, and the windows were open, the lights being off did nothing. We were able to see perfectly fine, with Pinkie standing next to the light switches, watching us with a disturbing smile. Twilight face huffed.
Pinkie, what are you doing?
Pinkie's eyes darted left and right when she saw us looking at her. She covered her eyes with a hoof. A moment later, she peeked out to see us still staring. I crossed my arms.
Just sit down.
She finally said. Twilight and I did as she said, sitting at the table as indicated. When we looked back over to Pinkie's spot, she had disappeared. "So, what's this all about?" I asked.
I have no idea. You were supposed to show her how to bake something from your world, I guess. She had something else in mind?
Something tightened around my eyes and I went blind. I immediately shot a hand to the blindfold and pulled it off. Another one replaced it. I took it off. Another one went up. I stood up and removed it, glaring behind me. I saw Pinkie next to a large sack of fabric that wasn't there when I sat down. "Can I help you?" I asked in a harsh voice.
Yes. Sit down and let me blindfold you.
That doesn't sound very enjoyable. How about we not do that?
Psh, silly, that's not how this works.
Twilight, I said, looking over the purple pony.
Pinkie, what are you doing? I'm sure if you explain it, Navarone will be more than willing to cooperate.
Like hell.
Well, I remember him saying that he didn't like icing or cupcakes as much as muffins, so I'm planning on proving him wrong. I'm going to blindfold him and force feed him muffins and cupcakes until he agrees that my cupcakes are better than Derpy's muffins.
Sounds hot. Or at least if it weren't for talking about horses. I don't know who Derpy is, but I really don't like icing. I don't mind the actual cupcakes, as long as they don't have icing on them. I shrugged. Too sugary for me. Pinkie jerked back and muttered something that I swear sounded like blasphemy. I didn't really care, though.
So, why don't we just go with the original plan?
Twilight asked.
Navarone doesn't seem to like icing, and if he says it's too sugary, it's too sugary. We don't know what this human body and taste buds are like, Pinkie. Then let's test them. Now, if you just sit down and let me blindfold you, we can begin.
I'm willing to do half of those, and that's the half that doesn't involve blinding me. You're really making this overly difficult.
Me? I'm not making this difficult. You're the one that's refusing to let me blindfold you.
Twilight sighed.
Pinkie, don't blindfold Nav. Nav, sit down. We have a schedule to follow, and if we don't follow it, we'll be late. If we're late, Nav won't be able to get everywhere, and if he can't get everywhere, he won't be accepted.
We both looked at her oddly.
I don't think that's how that works,
Pinkie said.
If she just let me throw him a party, all Ponyville would meet him.
I'm allergic to parties, remember?
Yeah, but I'm sure we could find some lotion or something.
Deathly allergic, I said. As in, I would die.
At least you would die smiling.
There are other ways I'd rather die, thank you, I flatly answered. Twilight looked a bit intrigued at that.
What does your culture have to say about death?
She asked. That it fucking sucks. I think we can talk about that later, I answered. I'm pretty sure we still have to deal with Pinkie. So, are you not going to blindfold me? Pinky looked at a piece of cloth she had in her hooves. With a sigh, it fell flat.
Fine, but you're still gonna try my cupcakes.
Damn it. Fine, I'll try a maximum of 3. She rocketed off to the kitchen as I joined Twilight at the table again.
So,
She said, if I end up living here, I'm going to have to put up with that often. She sighed.
Pinky's different. Just be happy she isn't forcing you to go to a party anyway.
I didn't have time to answer. Pinky came bustling out of the kitchen, pulling a cart lined with at least 50 cupcakes. Okay, eating that many would make me really, really sick, I said.
It's a good thing you two are sharing.
Pinky stopped the cart on our table and set out several trays of cupcakes. Each one was unique. Good lord. I thought you said we were going to be eating cupcakes, not art, I said, looking at them.
Silly. Cupcakes are art. All the more reason to like them.
She grabbed one and shoved it into her mouth. That was kind of horrifying, I commented. How about you not do that again?
How else am I supposed to eat them?
She asked after swallowing it whole. By taking decent-sized bites? Or at the very least chewing before you swallow? Or, I asked, turning to Twilight, do ponies need to chew?
Most of us do.
She said.
Pinky's just special.
Now when you say special,
Dig here, Navi.
Pinky yelled, shoving a cupcake across the table at me. Hey, listen, don't call me that, please. I picked the cupcake up and looked it over. The top was saturated in pink icing. The rest of it looked normal. I sighed and took a bite. I almost gagged on the sugar, just barely managing to force it down. I finished the cupcake off and swallowed with what felt like a grim finality. Pinky was looking at me with such a hopeful expression. No. She blinked.
No.
No. I confirmed. Her ears fell.
No.
She grabbed another cupcake and pushed it forward, her ears raising a bit. No. That almost made me throw up from how much sugar it had in it. I don't know how you can stand it.
But.
She pulled that one back and pushed another one with a tiny bit less icing forward. No. That process continued for a minute. I rejected 6 more.
Perhaps I can help?
Twilight said. She used her magic to pull a cupcake with almost no icing out and removed all of it. She passed the glob of icing to Pinky, who devoured it, and the cupcake flew my way. I sighed and grabbed it, taking a hesitant bite. Edible, but only just. Even this has a ridiculous amount of sugar in it. Human bodies aren't meant to take too much sugar. We can easily get sick or even die from too much. I have no idea what the limit is, but I would imagine eating a few more of these would put me here until my body started breaking the sugar down. Pinky looked depressed now.
How can you live without being able to eat such tasty treats?
We get on by other things. I don't care for sweets all that much anyway. My diet is already going to take a kick while I'm here. I shouldn't interrupt it any more than necessary.
Well, what kind of food did you used to eat back home?
Pinky asked. Now there's a conversation I can get into. I told her about some of the better vegetarian dishes. Salsa, nachos, pizza, mushrooms, sauteed vegetables, all that good stuff. At the end of the conversation, we made nachos from stuff that was just lying around the bakery. It was pretty fucking awesome. By the time we left, I no longer considered Pinkie Pie as annoying. In fact, that was pretty much the best showing all day. We departed in amicable terms, with her promising to look into other things I mentioned. The plan dictated that we visit Fluttershy next. This was the worst trip of the day. Fluttershy wasn't there, and while we knocked and knocked, waited and waited, the muttering in the small crowd of onlookers that followed us grew louder. That one pony is so scared she won't even open the door, one said.
Why won't they just leave her alone?
Another asked.
It's obvious she won't open the door.
And so on, and so on. It was bad. I quietly suggested to Twilight that we move on. She hastily agreed. We found out later that Fluttershy wasn't there. An animal emergency had came up and she was called away to deal with it. A justifiable excuse, but the rep I lost with the crowd made me wish the animal she was called to deal with had just died. Our last stop was Applejack. Of course, the plan was for us to go to the farm, stay for a short time, so I could help out or something, and then would have her follow us back into town. We went on down to the farm and stayed for a while, And that's where the problem was. I don't know shit about harvesting plants. My family worked with animal farms, not growing farms, and the animals we had couldn't fucking talk, so taking care of them proved a very different task from what I was used to. Some things were the same, though. She had chickens that I definitely stole eggs from, pigs that I fed with no problems, and cows that I introduced myself to. But when it came to harvesting apples, I watched Applejack kick a tree from her back legs, something she called apple bucking, and I just shook my head. No way in hell, I said. You got a roof or a fence I can repair? A well to dig? More animals to take care of?
We do got ourselves a fence that needs fixing up. Can't promise your tools will fit your hands that well, but you're welcome to give it a shot.
I smiled, my hands clutching at the prospect of something I could actually do. We talking barbed wire or wooden? I asked as she led me to her barn.
What the heck is barbed wire?
She asked.
It sounds painful.
If you don't know, don't worry about it. No need to tell her we used pain to keep our animals in line. As it turns out, they didn't have any nails, which is somewhat strange, because what kind of farm doesn't have 100 of rusty nails just sitting around, completely forgotten about? But whatever, it just meant I had to go help Rainbow Dash tear down the barn, which was fun. Without a sledgehammer, though, my part in it was basically telling her about what structural weaknesses. The rest of the plan went off with a hitch. The problem is, the rest of the plan was walking back. God, I could use a drink, I muttered. It was a few days after my first exertion, and the populace was still getting used to me. It was slow going, though being seen outside alone with Fluttershy helped tremendously. She wasn't well known as a pony, but she was well respected as a friend of Twilight, and for being the best of her job. Besides, if someone that seemed so shy, reserved, and graceful could get along with someone like me, obviously anyone else could do it as well.
We're going by the river, if you want to stop and get something to drink.
Fluttershy said softly. This pony is way too nice for her own good. Not what I meant. Let's just get to where we're going and call it a day.
Oh, okay.
We walked in silence for a few moments. By the time I'd be able to go outside, I had made a few observations about the environment. The first thing I noticed was how truly beautiful the entire place was. Since it was fall, all the trees in our path were bright and colorful, showing off the full spectrum of leafy colors. There was no smog or pollution in the air, but I found that I had more to do with Ponyville being in the absolute fucking boondocks than anything else. Industrialization hadn't really hit Equestria yet at this point, so there wasn't much smog at all. But the bigger cities had more problems. Basically the same as back home. Another thing I noticed was that all the animals seemed to get along, at least from what I was able to tell. I even saw bunnies mixing with ferrets, though I sensed something underhanded going down between them. I couldn't say what though, and I didn't feel like dwelling on it. The third thing I noticed was almost all shocking and surprising. The Pegasi controlled the weather. I had no idea how to explain it, but they can move clouds and make them rain. I learned that almost all Pegasi actually lived in the clouds, as they're able to stand on them. When I asked Twilight about it, she seemed just as shocked to learn about the conditions on Earth as I was about the conditions here. She mentioned something about the Everfree Forest, and got an odd look on her face. That's where Fluttershy and I were, by the way. We were on the way to meet someone named Zecora, the zebra that was mentioned before. But I wanted to know if Zecora had seen anything like me before, and I figured it was the best to let the ponies see me alone with Fluttershy to prove I'm harmless. Something disturbed my reverie. I shook myself out of it and looked around. Fluttershy stopped and was for some reason cowering and whimpering on the ground. I had no idea why until I turned around and saw a chicken approaching us. Then I saw its body and stopped in my tracks. What the hell?
Cockatrice!
Fluttershy groaned. Cockatrice? Isn't that one of those critters that turns you to stone? At her barely perceptible nod, I raised an eyebrow. Want me to kill it? Doesn't seem that hard, as long as I don't look it in the eye. She gave me a horrified look. Hey, I'm just asking. You're the one cowering before it. We could easily just sort of, I don't know, close our eyes and skirt around it. Or you could just use your animal taming powers and turn it into a friend.
Last time I encountered a cockatrice, I was only able to beat it because it was threatening my friends.
Well, geez, that shows what you think of me. Fine, we can turn back if you want. You get to explain to Twilight why, though. Still say you should have just let me wring its neck. I bet with the chicken head, it would kill it just fine. Her eyes widened even more, which reminded me that she kept chickens. Oops. One night, After another attempt to get the ponies acclimated toward me, Twilight started asking questions about Earth,
What kind of place is your world?
was the first thing she asked. I sighed and thought of an answer that wouldn't offend her delicate pony sensibilities. That's a hard question to answer. I'll tell you what I told you before. As a bit of disclaimer, I am not a normal human. In many ways, Earth, it's full of stupid people. Individually, humans are mostly decent beings that can think well. Put them in a group and they tend to lose their decency and the ability to think, sadly. The world I left was designed by groups, for groups. There are decent people here and there are also bad people. Personally, I've always been of the opinion that the good and evil are balanced in a way.
Huh. Here it seems that most every pony is more good than anything else.
It's the same for where I'm from. Most people are good, but there are a few really, really bad guys that bring the rest down. Like Pol Pot. But then, morality is relative, if you think about it.
What does that mean?
There's no definite right or wrong. The concept only exists if they are reviewed by individuals. One person may find stealing morally wrong, while another may find it justified, as they were able to take something that another person was unable to protect. Who is one person, after all, to declare one approach unilaterally wrong? We may not agree with it, but it doesn't mean it isn't right. And of course, my world is filled with people that don't agree with the idea and form groups around those that think alike. They are often persecuted those that think differently. Countries are formed, borders are drawn, and people do their best to stick together with those that agree with them. It usually works fine. Sometimes it doesn't, and then war happens.
Different countries? War? Your people are not united?
I could tell it was a concept she found hard to grasp. Not even close. Half of the world hates the other half, and no one country could truly trust each other. We don't have our equivalent of Princess Celestia where I come from. We don't even have a monarch. We elected our leaders. It's a good system when your population is decently educated.
What do you do for your common protection then? How do you deal with monsters?
We conquered nature a long time ago. There are still a few events of animals attacking humans, but it's rare. We hail from predators after all. While it seems you ponies evolved from prey, thus we defend ourselves better. What is more dangerous to everyone in my world are the monsters inside of us. When we ran out of real dangers, we started inventing them. People are easily misled and can be fooled into thinking something is a threat when it really isn't. With the invention of TV, this was made super easy.
What is TV? A mind control device?
I smiled at that. In a way, yes. It's a piece of technology that puts moving images on a screen and sounds come out of the speakers on the side.
Oh, like a projector?
Sort of. Ours were considerably more advanced, but they did start out as projectors. There are several different things you can watch on TV, with tons of different channels, each with different themes and shows. Evil invention, though sadly necessary. People use them for information or entertainment.
Hmm. So what was your place in the world?
I was a student. Still, I was almost at the end of my basic education before going off to university. I'm 18 in human years. I don't know what that translates to you in pony years. Basically, I was still learning.
You seem pretty intelligent for somebody who's still learning. How can you say your people are so stupid when you're still learning and yet seem to know so much?
There are a lot of problems with those assertions. First, I was almost done with school. I was on the last 3 months of the last year of the main education system. Second, I went to school designed to push those who are smarter than most others. We learned a hell lot more than most people do. Third, I only seem intelligent because you likely have no idea what half of what I say is about. I am merely a layman in most subjects, with very little real training in basically anything. What I know only scratches the surface of what I know there is to know.
Sometimes you seem almost braggart, and sometimes you sell yourself short. I can't get a fix on you.
What can I say? I'm the most humble man on the planet. It came out before I could think about it, but when I did, I realized it was quite literally true. I cited the implications of being the only one of my species out there.
What's wrong?
Humans have a pretty good lifespan. I'm going to be alone among ponies for a very long time. Every time I think I'm resigned to it, another thing goes off in my mind and I'll miss. No more internet, no more books, no more music. No chance of love and raising a family or finding a mate. And from the state of affairs with other ponies, there's a good chance I'll remain a forever pariah. C'est la vie. She looked rather crestfallen at the aching sadness in my voice. I keep forgetting it was her fault that I'm here. I tried to make up for what I said, since I really don't like making people sad. At least I end up in a realm where most of the residents aren't trying to kill me. Most of the ponies I've run into have been rather kind, even if they are dismissive or fearful of me. If I had to be stranded anywhere, this is probably the best place for it. It didn't really do much to cheer her up. There didn't really seem to be all that much that could be done. After all, it was her fault I was there, but more can be really said. The next day I had a meeting with Applejack to discuss farming methods and uses of different crops. I will tell you straight up, I'm not much of a farmer. We had already been over all of that, but I wanted to make sure she remembered. Most of the work I ever did on the farm was helping to feed animals and baling hay. The little I know is learned from books or general education, I told her.
That's all right. We ain't really here for much more than the show anyway. You just tell me what you can and we'll see if it's useful.
Okay, I don't suppose you need to know about pesticides. Those are poisons we use in our crops to kill off any kinds of pests. They're both good and bad, as they can cause a lot of harm to the environment, but they do kill most bugs. I don't suggest them, not with the system you have set up.
What about fruit bats? She asked. Those pests are dug in good and they're a pain to get rid of.
Did you try making really loud noises? I think bats in my world have sensitive ears.
That might work, but those things can really destroy crops. We just figured it would be best to let them stay in part of the field we don't use much.
Well, if that works. Anyway, I haven't seen your entire farm, but irrigation might be an option. It's where you dig small canals throughout your farm so you can get water here and there easier. Not a necessity, but it can be really useful on a huge farm.
Irrigation, huh? Might have to keep that one in mind. Vic McIntosh has to spend a whole day hauling water sometimes.
I'm sure you probably know just about every way to cook an apple there is. Do you know about apple cider, apple brandy, or apple jack?
We know everything there is to know about cider. And I know my name is Applejack, but I don't know about anything called that, though.
Huh, well, I refuse to be the one that brings alcohol to Ponyland, even with as much as I could use a drink.
Well, shoot. Ain't got me curious. What's alcohol?
What kind of little knowledge hurt? A mind-altering substance that can make you feel either good or bad, depending on your mood. It causes all sort of manners of problems where I come from, so I'm not going to be introducing it here. I don't know how well you ponies would take that stuff anyway. You'd probably need enough to drown a horse to get you drunk. No pun intended, of course. Though it would give me a chance to use a few jokes. So, pony walks into the bar, nah.
Sounds like it might be okay for a few special occasions, when every pony's already happy. I don't know what could be so bad about it.
Remember, I'm talking about human use. We're unpredictable at the best of times. Imagine how we would be if you gave us something that altered us in unexpected ways. Some people are harmless drunks, some people aren't. Should we really risk finding out what it should do to ponies? Though thinking about it, that might be a great prank to pull on Rainbow Dash.
I do owe her a big one for that last doozy she gave me. If you can make something to help her get her back, I could bring you some apples.
Seems like a mean idea, but a fun one. I'm in. If you won't tell anyone it was me that did it, it'll take a month to brew something worth drinking. I suppose Twilight probably has everything else I need in her lab. It's fall, right?
Yep. Why? Does it cook better in warmer season or something?
Colder, actually. You have to deep freeze it for a while. I might show you how to make it if you swear you'll only do it after we test it. And then only for family celebrations. I don't want anyone to know that I was the one who started making this stuff if it turns out bad.
You have my word, Nav. But, if it's as bad as you say, maybe we shouldn't test it at all.
I don't think a single test would hurt too bad, as long as we take precautions. I'll have to make sure she can't fly and she stays safe until it wears off. This stuff can really impair your movement until it wears off.
This is sounding better and better.
Yeah, but it's relatively complicated formula. I hope Twilight has everything we'll need in her lab. We spent a few more minutes discussing boring farm crap. I was able to remember a bit more than I thought, though I honestly doubt most of it was helpful. Later that day, I asked to check Twilight's lab.
Why do you need to go down there?
She asked. Just a project I'm working on with Applejack. Should you have the right supplies, an experiment of sorts, you could say. I told her. I figured if the word experiment didn't get her, nothing would.
If you're planning it with Applejack, where is she?
Getting some other supplies, of course. I didn't figure you'd keep a load of apples down there.
Well, okay. I don't see the harm you could possibly do with an experiment about apples of all things.
With that, she led me down to the lab and helped me look for what I needed. When she heard my list, she looked at me incredulously.
What kind of experiment did you say this was again?
A surprise experiment. You have Applejack's word that it won't come to much or any harm. She shook her head, but said nothing. Man, Applejack's words must be worth a lot around here. The next day, Applejack showed up with apples, and we started to brew. After I gave her the disclaimer that I'd never actually made any booze, I told her what should happen and how it should go. It took a while to get it set up. When it was finally ready to start going, she chuckled darkly at my contraption we had set up. This'll teach her to paint all my apples. I knew better than to ask. Given that this was my first trip to Sakura's abode failed, Twilight decided to wait until Sakura made one of her trips into town again. So it was that the extremely strange zebra and I met for the first time in Twilight's library. The Pearl Mare herself was off doing something giving us privacy.
Something of your nature I have never seen.
Sakura said as soon as we got settled down.
Stranger yet, your demeanor doesn't seem mean.
Did you just rhyme? I asked before I could stop myself.
A rhyme I did just speak, so you needn't be meek. There are many strange things here on this land, in lush jungles and vast stretches of sand. As someone who's undoubtedly quite new here, how will you make a life in a place without peer?
I don't fucking want to. Given the choice, I'd rather go home, but that autistic purple horse doesn't seem to be able to figure out how to send me back. If I truly get stuck here, I have no clue what I'll do.
Would it truly be so bad? Would living here drive you mad?
Honestly, I don't know. It's only been a little over a week. The ponies seem nice, but they're also cautious and skittish. This place is not at all where I belong, but there's nothing I can really do about it. Magic's apparently relegated to things with horns, and the Princess Twilight keeps harping about isn't doing shit to help. Whether or not it will drive me mad isn't really the question. It's whether or not I have a fucking choice.
There is always a choice to live or die, but I suggest giving living here a try. To you, living here and finding the right place will be quite odd, but you'll find the happiness in ponies have no facade. The happiness is true, and it could fit you too.
I could grow happy here, or Twilight could find a way to send me back. Why adjust to something unnecessarily? But hell, what about my family? I left things behind, Sakura. Things that can't be forgotten. How do you think I feel about me just fucking disappearing?
I, of all ponies, fully understand your true fear. You aren't the only one who's left behind someone dear. We were both of us exiled from our home and forced into a life where we must now roam. Here is now where I have now chosen to settle, despite the attempts a few have to meddle. I've made a good life, free from too much strife. Ponyville is quite a nice place, with many neighbors and much space.
Shit, it's not like I have much of a choice anyway. And if I did know somewhere better to go, I'm stuck in case Twilight friends find a way to get me back. We shared a moment of silence, since we couldn't think much to say. So, what's with the rhymes?
There will be another time later to tell you a tale. For now I must go to the market and find a sale. There is not much time before it grows dark, and upon my trip home I must embark.
Well, it was nice to meet you, I think. And I suppose I'll probably see you later. And so went was perhaps the strangest meeting I ever had. There we go. Oh my gosh. 43 minutes of pure narration. That was really rough on my voice. I hope it wasn't too noticeable towards the latter half. Probably around like 30-minute mark. Where my voice degraded a little bit. I tried really hard to keep it consistent. But man, 43... I think I spent... Let me see. Spent an hour and a half just doing narration. Because I had to correct quite a few things. Making sure everything sounded correct. But, anyways, interesting chapter. Our man's bringing in alcohol with Applejack and is acting rather coy with the whole talking about humanity thing. A very typical plotline, but hey, you know. It's a trope for a reason. Some people like it, some people don't. What I do like are my wonderful Patreons. Thank you, Chase LeMaster, HKH4 aka Texture, The Animated Ghost, Solus, Stu Hex, Capt.Blueshadow, and Squall Windfeather. And of course, a large thank you to the requester of this series, Silent Titan. I appreciate your guys' support so much, and I hope you have enjoyed. Anyways, this has been Firehearth. Have a wonderful day.